Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Welcome to Something to Wrestle With.
Something to Wrestle With.
Bruce Prichard.
Bruce Prichard. Well, you know. That's not a rib. She pooted.
She pooted.
What a rib?
No, yeah, but there's no box of gimmicks.
Rumor and innuendo.
I don't deal in rumor and innuendo. And was he there? I was there.
Say something about
I don't give a shit. I ain't scared.
I ain't scared of shit.
Fuck him.
You, Bruce.
I love you take the cheese. Double cheeseburger. You take the bread. Double cheese. Well, you know. And then double mayo. You know, it's called chicken salad. Double onion, motherfucker.
You're nothing but an egg-sucking dog.
Throw it in your Google machine.
Goddamn, kid. God damn it. What the hell show you got there? I need more. Ooh, yeah.
What say you?
Pronouns, pal.
And now, something to wrestle with. Con Bruce Prichard. The second most recognizable athlete in the entire world today. Conrad Thompson.
What happened when? What would Vince say about that?
Well, hey, Vince, to the my sure arms look good tonight. Yeah. You're so big. Yeah. Let's go.
Bullshit.
Welcome to Wrestle.
World title on that.
Welcome to Something to Wrestle With.
Something to wrestle
Something
with.
to wrestle with. Something to wrestle with. Bruce Prichard.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle With. Out, Bruce Prichard. Yep, that's right. I'm sorry. It's another remix episode, but just like last week, we have a special guest. Stay tuned until the very end. You don't want to miss this. But today, it's all about Michael P.S. Hayes, a great close personal friend of the show. And I got to tell you, he is one of the smartest minds in professional wrestling. There's really no other explanation as to why Michael has had such longevity in this wrestling space. Of course, we know he was tearing it up when he was a Freebird, and we all saw what he did over in WCW when he had a second lease on life with a new version of the Freebirds, Mr. Jimmy Jam Garvin, another friend of the show. But it's his work for WWE, and no, not as Doc Hendricks, but behind the scenes, that has probably cemented his legacy in the Wrestling Hall of Fame in our minds. Of course, he's in every other Wrestling Hall of Fame, but so many great magic moments that you've seen in WWE had a little bit of Michael Hayes' fingerprints on it. And today we're going to pay tribute to the man, the myth, the legend, Michael P.S. Hayes, as only Bruce and I know how. And I'll never forget, man, we actually recorded this episode in the studio, the Westwood One Studios right there in Manhattan. And it was Bruce's first WrestleMania back, 2019. So just over 2 years ago. It was pretty cool to record in that studio, and it was even better when Tim Sabian ran in the room with a couple of pizzas from Joe's, which is Bruce's absolute favorite spot. But Bruce was rip-roaring ready to go. He had just started in late February, and he was excited to be back in the saddle with WWE, and there we were, WrestleMania weekend. So let's jump back in and play a little bit of the classic Michael Hayes episode. I'll chime in from here and there and add a little context, but don't miss the end. I'm telling you, it's like those Marvel movies where you think the credits have rolled and there's a little thing at the end. Well, that's us here on this very special remix of Michael P.S. Hayes getting the Something to Wrestle treatment with Bruce Prichard. The one and only Michael P.S. Hayes, born March 29th, 1959 in Philadelphia, PA. That's actually the reason we originally wanted to cover him a couple of weeks ago on the 29th. He moved to Pensacola when he was like 8 years old and starts wrestling in 1979 using his real name as a referee. And back in the day when he was working that Florida, Alabama, Tennessee territory, he was riding up and down the roads with Hollywood John Tatum. It's a name we haven't talked about much on the show here. You got any John Tatum stories you can share with us?
Well, John Tatum and Missy Hyatt were an item for a time, and John is actually the first one that brought Missy Hyatt into the wrestling business, per se. And John brought Missy to the Mid-South area. They were a tandem, good-looking team, two young people. And that's also where Missy and Eddie Gilbert first met, and then they became a tandem and eventually got married.
A pattern here.
Yeah, but that was John Tatum, and I think that Johnny was an interesting cat, and that wasn't the best worker in the world. And the guy we're going to be talking about today, Michael Hayes, wasn't the greatest worker in the world.
Well, I'm glad you said that.
He was a damn good man on the mic.
Yeah, and really, in wrestling, sometimes a big personality compensates for maybe what you lack in the ring and vice versa. So you talked about him not being maybe the best worker in the world. Of course, we're talking about Michael Hayes. He's trained by Alpha, the Wild Samoans. I didn't know that until I started doing research for this show. Alpha is, he's got quite the legacy as a trainer. Tell everybody some of the other folks he would have trained over the years.
Well, Alpha actually helped start Batista and Billy Kidman. The list kind of goes on because during that era, there weren't a lot of schools for guys to go and learn the trade. There weren't a lot of places, if you wanted to become a professional wrestler, to go and learn. And Alpha provided that opportunity for people. Plus, he was a pretty good trainer, he and his brother. So,
what do you think wrestling school cost back then?
It would depend on the guy running it. Some guys were just looking for that quick $300 payday. So, hey, come on in and pay $300. But I believe at the time, Michael was paying $10 a week.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Some more information I found during my research here is that PS helped get in the business with Bill Moody. I didn't know that they were running mates way back in the day. That's sort of weird to think about.
Big Bill Moody from Mobile, Alabama.
Tell everybody who Bill Moody, or what would Bill Moody sound like, maybe?
Oh, yes, Michael Hayes, rest in peace.
Actually, the Freebirds were kind of known for peeing on people. Maybe it would be rest in piss.
Good point.
You think? Maybe?
Good point, yeah. That could happen. Probably did.
What did Michael ever share with you, or Paul Bearer share with you about the early days with them together? Sounds like a lot of weed going on.
I don't think that they were either one of them making enough money to be partaking in a lot of weed. However, in anticipation of this show, I did talk to Michael a little bit, and this will get you, Conrad, see, because back in the day, he was talking about $10 a week for lessons. And it was like $10 for a lid of pot.
What is a lid of pot?
See, I knew that you young whippersnappers would not know what a lid is.
I don't know what a lid is. That's like a store that sells hats in the mall.
Well, no, a lid was, like a bag of pot, about an ounce of pot and everything. So that was a lid. So you would go down to your local drug dealer and say, "Hey, buddy, got a lid on you?" "Yeah, I do." "How much?" And Michael was going for them $10 lids.
What, you could get a $10 ounce of weed?
Back in the day.
A lot of dirt in that bag. A lot of dirt.
It was dirty weed, didn't it? Yeah, it wasn't the good stuff.
Mostly shake, probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
Nah, well, a lot of stems, a lot of seeds.
Yeah.
Just,
It counts, Doot Doot.
Hey, it just means you got to smoke more of it.
Hey, so 1979, when he's wrestling for Mid-South Wrestling, at the suggestion of Bill Watts, he forms a tag team with Terry Bam Bam Gordy, and they win those Mid-South tag team titles 3 times, and there they become the Fabulous Freebirds, and of course, easy for me to say, the Fabulous Freebirds. he becomes Michael P.S. Hayes. There's been lots of debate over the years. Clear it up. Tell everybody what Michael says the PS stands for.
Well, fuck. Michael, like you think, is pretty purely sexy. Dude.
Over the years, though, you guys have probably come up with other things to stand for those initials.
Yeah, we did. Bill Watts did the Prissy Sissy and a few other things that you can't say on TV. But no, Michael, man, he didn't do the PS shit until he came back in the mid '80s in the Mid South, and that's when he adopted the PS. I'm updating my gimmick, dude. I'm gonna be PS now. Fuck. Law enforcement fuck me as fuck you.
Oh, that's my favorite Brian Gerwitz version of Michael Hayes. So he meets Terry Gordy as a teenager in Mississippi, and instantly these guys hit it off, become big running mates, and when they first sort of become buds, they're both teenagers. And I don't think we've talked about Terry Gordy a lot here on the show. I know he's really, really special to Michael. Tell us about, Michael's relationship with Gordy, and more importantly, what Gordy's sort of reputation was amongst his peers in the business.
Well, when they first broke into the business, both very young, they were both teenagers, I believe. Terry younger than Michael. However, Terry was the workhorse, and even at that young age, Terry was this big, just romping, stomping, brawler type of individual that could go out, work with anybody, and the fact that he was a big guy made him, hey, he'll be great for the main event. So you put Terry Gordy into that situation, then you've got a mouthpiece like Michael Hayes. Michael can go cut the promo, go get the heat, send Bam Bam in to do all the work. People love working with Bam Bam. I've never heard any complaints about anybody not wanting to work with Terry Gordy. Michael? Maybe. But Gordy? Never. Terry was a workhorse. But that relationship between Michael and Terry, they were brothers. They loved each other. They rode up and down the roads together. They did everything together, and they were family. So it wasn't a tag team partner. It wasn't a business relationship. It was a brotherhood, and they loved one another as deeply as you can, man to man.
All right, stop the tape. We got to talk about Terry Bam Bam Gordy here for a minute. I know some modern wrestling fans might take a look at him and maybe not get it. But, dude, every wrestler and every fan who saw him work live just raved about him. And I can't help but wonder, who would you even compare him to in this more modern era? I mean, is it somebody like Samoa Joe or somebody like Walter or whoever it is? They would have to have their working boots on. It's rare that you hear anybody say anything other than Terry Gordy was a natural. Terry Gordy was a badass. Terry Gordy was this or that. Terry Gordy was something else, man. And he was also Michael's best friend. Let's jump back to it. Something to Wrestle. All about Michael Hayes. I think Michael said a fellow named Frankie Kane put them together.
Great Mephisto.
There you go. Okay, because I was going to say I've never even heard that name, but that was his real name.
Yeah.
And we've established on the show that I can't say his gimmick name.
You can't say Great Mephisto?
No, I always want to say.
Come on, let's do it.
I always want to say Mephisto, which is not it. And I did that the first time, and you tried to slap me. This was years ago. So let's talk about
Mephisto.
Yeah, for me, he'll always be the Great Mephisto. You're welcome.
Oh, shit. Well, we'll stick with Frankie Kane.
Yeah, we'll go with Frankie Kane for now. I want to talk about, one of the things that Michael is really credited for, and a lot of people sort of take claim for this, but he says that it was his idea to first sort of bridge the gap between rock and roll and pro wrestling. And at the time, maybe wrestling wasn't ready for it. And eventually, he talks Terry Gordy into it, and then they talk Jerry Jarrett into it, and he goes for it, and they start doing the entrance to the Freebird, the Leonard Skinner song, Freebird, on Memphis TV, and it sort of grew from there. Now, everybody has a different version of how music got introduced into wrestling. Have you heard Michael Hayes' version? What do you think of that?
I've heard Michael Hayes' version, but again, you go back to the 50s. Gorgeous George had entrance music, and to my knowledge was the first wrestler to ever have entrance music. In the early 70s, Bad Leroy Brown came out to Bad Leroy Brown.
Right.
So he had entrance music. Look, every era there's going to have your guy that claims to do it. Michael was the first tag team with 3 guys in it that came out to Freebird. So they were the first ones to be the Freebirds that came out to Freebird.
One of the stories that Michael always points to as a reason to sort of explain his affection for Terry Gordy is there was a territory where they were going to fire Michael Hayes. And Terry Gordy says,
that just
surprise,
covers a lot of fucking territory of territories.
Well, Terry Gordy said, if you don't want Michael, you don't want me. And Terry Gordy quit. And Terry Gordy was regarded as being, the workhorse of that duo. So they left the building together, and they were fast friends ever since.
Yeah, they were. And like I said, it was a family situation. And I dare say the closest second to that would probably be Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express back in the day. They were a threesome and they were a team, and where one went, all three went.
Well, when they went to World Class, they set the world on fire. They did huge business out there with Fritz and the gang, and a lot of their success, I think, as a team, comes from their rivalry with the Von Erichs. Of course, they were a bunch of Texas boys, and the Freebirds came in with all their Georgia stuff, and that really is what Michael Hayes would say is the reason they used the Confederate flag, because that portion of, or that still appears on the Georgia state flag now, I believe. And they wanted to make it like a state rivalry, and it was Georgia versus Texas, and those guys did monster business, including a pretty famous night and a cage match with Ric Flair and Kerry Von Erich, where Michael Hayes was the referee. Talk a little bit about, I know you weren't there, but you were at least keeping up with the business, and that was in your home state. What did that rivalry mean? What did that night mean? And what do you make of the whole Georgia-Texas thing as an explanation behind the rebel flag?
Well, it even went a little deeper than that, because WTBS in Atlanta was the first superstation, and they were on cable, so they were national before there was national wrestling.
Right.
The Freebirds had exposure on WTBS from Atlanta, Georgia. So regardless of, none of them are from Atlanta. They're all from Pensacola, or Michael's actually from Philadelphia. But everybody saw him on Georgia Championship Wrestling, so they had adopted and adapted this Georgia persona and took that state as their home state, because that's how everybody saw him. There you go. And coming into Texas for us, and also it was at a time cable was still new. It was that new thing. Not everybody had it. And if you did have it, you were rich and you got that cable. So them coming in, it was things that were perceived on cable were better, bigger. Oh my God, did you see what happened in Atlanta? So when the Freebirds came in, they were already stars.
Right. They were established.
Yes, they were already stars. And to come in, and I believe they first came in as baby faces, as friends of the Von Erichs, to help the Von Erichs avenge. And then on that fateful, I believe it was a Christmas night, with Kerry Von Erich there, and Michael's guest referee, and Terry Gordy's got the cage door. He's going to make sure that Ric Flair doesn't get out, and at the right time, right place. Kerry Von Erich gets that cage door slammed in his head, because Kerry wouldn't let Michael help him beat Ric Flair. Because Ric Flair and Michael had gotten into it, and Michael decked Flair, told Kerry to pin him, and he'd count it. Kerry didn't want it that way, because he was good milk drinking damn Texan. No nothing. And at the right time, you had Terry Gordy slam that fucking door on Kerry's head, bust his ass wide open, and Ric Flair kept his title, and then Freebirds kicked the living shit out of them Von Erich boys.
One of the biggest moments in wrestling, certainly of the year, but in the history of World Class, right?
I think for World Class, that was right up there with when
Kerry beat Flair.
Kerry actually beat Flair, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be 1A or 1B. Well, let's talk about that. While they're out there, they filmed a music video in 1983 that really was pretty ahead of its time. And I know that we sort of mocked, maybe they weren't the first to use music. But a music video like this, very well done, too, I might say.
Yeah.
Bad Street, USA.
Bad Street, Atlanta, GA. Doot, doot. Bad Street in the whole USA. Doot, doot. Bad Street. Nasty and hot.
The further down that block you went, the better it got. To do. See, and even the music is do 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 do. That's the way I hear it.
What was the, it was cool. It is cool. What was your perception when you're seeing that in Houston? Is Bosch sort of shitting on that and mocking it, or are you having to tell him as the older gentleman, hey man, this is pretty cool?
It was
Kids
pretty
are
cool.
digging this.
It was big. It was, and
but sometimes older folks don't get it, right?
no, they don't, and they don't like that damn rock and roll music. But I don't
Right.
care who you are. The song's great.
It's
Bad
tremendous.
Street is awesome.
Absolutely.
And the fact that it was about them and they did it, and Michael's terrible, but he was great. You know what I mean? Michael's not that classic rock and roll singer.
But
However, he's David Lee Roth.
He sings it with confidence,
Yeah.
so it makes it cool.
But David Lee Roth is not a great fucking singer, but he's David Lee Roth.
Right.
Michael was Michael Hayes.
Right.
So you believed it. He believed it, and he sang it with that passion that, by God, you felt every bit of it. And that was the beauty of Bad Street USA.
Okay, time out. This Bad Street video and song, legendary. I think you could argue it's the best song in the history of wrestling done by a wrestler. I know that Chris Jericho is going to take issue with that. And don't get me wrong, Judas is over it with the AEW crowd. But I'm more of a nostalgia fan. I like the stuff I grew up on. I think, it's just not quite the same for me, the passion I had as a kid. And I know you probably feel the same way if you're listening to this. Like, was there anything better than wrestling when you're like 8 or 9 or 10 years old? No way, man. And I thought these dudes were like the coolest dudes around. They had their own music video, for God's sake. And what's really cool is maybe one of my peak wrestling fandom experiences, certainly top 5, as Bruce likes to say. When Hayes came and spent the night at my house years ago, there may or may not have been a few cocktails flowing. And somehow, some way, the old YouTube app shows up on my TV. Bad Street video is in, the volume is up, and I got a little concert in my living room. I think that's so cool that Michael can have so much fun with singing in the music video. He fancies himself a singer, and by God, if you see that video, he more than pulled it off. He looks like a front man. He walks like a front man. Well, I don't know if he dresses like a front man, but he dresses like something. That whole Bad Street thing was so cool to me, and Michael has become such a great friend to me that he gave me, and I can't believe this, one of the only 2 alternate covers for his album. That's right. The album way back in the day. There's the album cover you saw, and then there's the one that didn't get published. I'll try to throw a photo of that up on social media, but I had it professionally framed. It's here in my studio now, and it's a prized possession because, dude, the Freebirds were badass. Let's get back to it. Michael Hayes on Something to Wrestle.
Of course, we should mention the other member of the Freebirds we haven't talked about a lot about is your boy, probably known to be the guy who got beat up a bunch in the group, Buddy Roberts. And Buddy Roberts was a bit of a journeyman wrestler before this, right?
Buddy had success out in California and in Florida, different places as a tag team, is the Fabulous Blondes. He and Jerry Brown were a tag team. Great tag team. They got a lot of heat, but Buddy had just come off of a stint working as Johnny Valentine's younger brother, Dale Valentine. It failed miserably. Johnny had brought Buddy in and wanted Buddy to manage a restaurant in San Antone, help him run a wrestling school, all this grandiose ideas that just went right down the shitter. So Buddy was looking for something, and Bill Watts is actually the one, I believe, that put Buddy with Michael and Bam Bam. And Michael was like, he ain't no Freebird. Well, he ain't going to wear our colors. And then they got Buddy to travel with them. They got to know Buddy, and Buddy quickly became a Freebird brother.
It is funny that he didn't want anything to do with it at first, and then eventually came around, and they became the best of friends. I guess I should mention that Michael's attitude in wrestling was always, you leave while you're on top, so you've always got somewhere to come back to. And they left, and they went to the World Wrestling Federation. This happened in 1984. I know it's before you were there, but I'm sure you've heard the stories. What the hell happened?
They were Freebirds. You know, I heard the story from the WWF version. I've heard Michael's version, but they came in, and Vince had these huge ideas to do music with the Freebirds. He was using David Wolf, who was Cyndi Lauper's husband and manager. The idea behind it was that David would then propel the Freebirds. This would be this wrestling tag team that also sang.
Rock and wrestling, baby.
Rock and wrestling, man. And just continue it to the next level. Michael and them came up. I think that they were there maybe a month, maybe 2. I don't even think they were there that long. But this is where, again, going back to your friend Dave Meltzer, where shit gets weird.
Well, I haven't even mentioned him today.
I'm mentioning him.
Okay.
Because this is how just shit gets started and gets blown out of proportion. There was a show that Michael missed for whatever reason, and they had Pat Patterson, who was the agent of the show, work, I think with Terry or Buddy, whoever, and introduced him as the Fabulous Freebirds, Terry Gordy and Pat Patterson. So Meltzer reports in his Observer they are making a new Freebird tag team. The new Freebirds will consist of Pat Patterson being a Freebird now. It was one night. Michael didn't show up. Pat substituted for him. And, again, this was before the internet, but people got the dirt sheets and everything. And I even remember Bill Watts going, oh, my God, they're killing the Freebirds. They're putting Patterson with them.
What would that have sounded? If Pat Patterson sang Bad Street instead of Michael Hayes, what would that sound like?
Bad Street, Atlanta, GA. I don't know. You can try to make it classical somehow. My way. But it was, and all of that speculation, but it was stated as fact.
Right.
That Pat Patterson's going to be a Freebird. Because one night, one town, somewhere in America, Pat subbed for a missing Freebird. And that's the silly shit that I fucking hate about him. But
Michael Hayes had said that he had fallen in love in Texas, and he wasn't really, his heart wasn't in the New York run because he wanted to be back with her. And allegedly, Terry woke up in a bad mood, and he had been sleeping on the grass, fell asleep outside. And so he showed up.
We've all been there.
We have. We've all been there. Shout out to Big Booty Judy. And so he shows up one day, quote unquote, highly out of it, and bumps into Andre, who I guess is acting as agent for the night. And Hayes recalled Andre pointing out that they were drunk, and Hayes said, no, he's not. And then Hayes fell over. So Andre's upset because allegedly he was the one who sort of put in a good word for him, felt like they were blowing their chance, and Hayes has gone on record as saying, I did the wrong thing for a friend. And he also says he never did fire the Freebirds.
Well, that's the story. That's the New York version of it, and I believe that the version of it happened in Chicago, where Andre was playing cribbage, and the Freebirds walked in, messed up, and Andre, get out! You're fired! Because he was the agent that night at the show. That's their story, sticking to it.
There's another version where, they finish all their bookings, and then they have a talk with Vince McMahon, and Vince shares that he doesn't think he can trust Michael Hayes. So he's fired, and maybe he got fired directly from Vince.
He probably did get fired directly from Vince after the fact, but even Michael will tell you, yeah, they missed a show. And whether it was Andre telling him get out or Michael going, well, fuck.
Is it fair to say alcohol was involved in that incident?
Probably.
Okay.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Sure. Allegedly.
I mean, what the fuck? Who doesn't have a fifth of Jack and a couple shots of Jaeger? By that, I mean half a bottle. And you got to chase that down with some ice beer.
Ice beer is the gimmick.
Do.
Hey, so $250,000 record deal. Does that sound right? Because that's the number Hayes has floated out there. You just said that they were going to try to do
yeah, they were trying to do a record deal. I have no idea what it was for, but it was definitely wanting to be able to take them to that next level with Dave Wolf as their manager and produce albums.
All right, time out. All these different stories, all these different opinions on the Freebirds in New York. What do you think happened? jump on social media. Let's talk about it. At Prichard Show is where you can find us on Twitter, and that's where it seems like most of the wrestling conversation happens these days. But if they'd have stuck around and it would have worked out, who could you have seen them have successful feuds with in the WWF? I don't know that they would have been able to be heels forever. I think they would have started heels and eventually they would have become baby faces, and that opened up a whole new set of circumstances. But it would have been so cool to see them with the British Bulldogs, with the Hart Foundation, on and on. But it just wasn't meant to be. Let's get back to it. Something to Wrestle with Michael Hayes.
From there, of course, the Freebirds go to the AWA. They feud with the Road Warriors for the titles. In '86, they go to the UWF. In fact, Terry Gordy was the first UWF World Champion. They get in a little bit of a feud with Skandar Akbar's Devastation Incorporated. And then the Freebirds break up, and Hayes becomes a full-fledged babyface and remains in the WWF, which is later sold, or I'm sorry, UWF, which is later sold to Jim Crockett in April of '87.
Yeah, and that was the first time that I got to work with the Birds a lot.
In the
Full
UWF.
time at UWF, because I was working. Bill Watts owned part of Houston, and that was during the time I was doing double duty TV in Dallas and also TV in Tulsa as well, and being around the Birds a lot. And it was also during this time that we had taken over. When I say we, the Houston office had taken over the merchandising for UWF.
Right.
We were doing lots of T-shirts on different people that had never been done before. Pictures, posters, just different things, where in the past they had done some T-shirts, but other than that, they didn't do a lot of merchandise. So we had taken it over and we were doing some different things, and the UWF folks had ordered all these T-shirts. There were Bad Street USA, Dr. Death, there was Ted DiBiase one, the Fantastics, and something else. So we inherited all of that merchandise. The first show that we did with the Bad Street USA T-shirts was a Reunion Arena show in Dallas. And I brought all of the T-shirts that I had, which was exactly 240 T-shirts.
You remember the number?
I distinctly remember the number because that was all that they had ordered. It was whatever, 20 dozen. It was 240. That's right, yeah. And we're thinking, man, Dallas, Freebirds, they're going to do well. And they did do well. I mean, we sold a lot of, we probably sold more Bad Street shirts than we did anything else other than maybe Dr. Death. Well, that night, I made a comment to Michael. I said, hey, Michael, I said, the Bad Street shirts came out good, and I said, they're selling real good tonight. He goes, where the fuck did you get them? I said, got them from Scott. And Scott Munns was the merchandise guy that Bill had used before that. He worked directly for Bill Watts. Where the fuck did he get them? And I'm like, I don't know.
Well, you can't sell my shit.
Okay. Wasn't the place and or time to get into it. Well, Michael then, quote,
I had somebody go out and count, and they sold over 2,000 T-shirts that night. I know for a fact.
and he was really upset, went to Bill, came to us, and because we were the ones running merchandise. And I said, Michael, there weren't even 2,000 T-shirts produced. There were 240 produced. And I've still got a bunch of them. But it did sell well in Dallas. I bet you we probably sold maybe 100 of them. That was good back in the day. No, oh God, I had somebody up there counting, and they're considered a couple thousand sold. So we had to have a big meeting in Tulsa at the fairgrounds, and Michael and his people came in, and eventually we settled, and it just became, you know what, we're not going to sell it. Here's how many were ordered. We will pay you
for all of them that we ordered.
For all of them that we ordered, we'll fucking give you. Here's all of the profit.
Even the shit we didn't sell.
Even the shit we didn't sell, and never sold another one.
Right
after that, and just cut it off because it was more trouble than it was worth. But to Michael's defense and his credit, he had Bad Street trademarked. He had protected himself, and in the wrestling business for so long, promoters and people that were doing that, you just did it. You know what I mean? Vince had done the deal where he had great merchandise deals for the guys and paid them a percentage of merch. That hadn't been done before. And that was something that we were starting to do by taking over the merchandise, that talent would now participate in the sales, but it hadn't been done before that. So Michael thought he was being ripped off. He wasn't, but he thought he was. And, he was a little high-strung back in those days.
What do you think about breaking up the Freebird? It's been a successful gang. I guess we should mention this. Is that the first gang? Is that the first faction in wrestling? It predates the Horsemen, predates DX and the NWO.
Probably the longest group together like that. Yeah, it was definitely the first threesome. It was definitely the first threesome that were in, their gimmick was Fabulous Freebirds Incorporated, which means any two Freebirds could wrestle in any match. So if you've got a tag team match against Bob Armstrong and Mr. Wrestling number 2, you never knew what two Freebirds you were going to face. Could be Michael and Terry, could be Michael and Buddy, could be Buddy and Terry. They could do any combination they wanted. And that was a selling point of it. And Michael was the mouthpiece. The other two guys were the workhorses.
All right, let's talk about, I guess we should just skip ahead. We know that the Freebirds are going to wind up in WCW. And by the Freebirds, I mean Michael Hayes and Jimmy Garvin. I know you weren't there, so we'll keep it moving here. What did you think of that incarnation? It's not the same without Gordy and Buddy, is it?
No, to me, once the team split up and you didn't have the original members, which was Michael Hayes, Buddy Roberts, and Terry Gordy, it just wasn't the same. Now, throughout the years, Jimmy Garvin was always an honorary Freebird, and he always was part of the gang. They always hung out together in real life, so he was a part of the gang. And I'll even go on, going back to the UWF days, back in the day when we would run Dallas. Some of the best times ever were after our television tapings. We would go back to Jimmy Papa's house. Jimmy Papa was the drummer and I guess the band manager or something for the Bad Street Band and the Freebirds, and just party. That's the first time that I actually got to meet Big Bill Moody. Percy Pringle was at Jimmy Papa's house in the after party after Dallas TV. So Garvin was always around. Garvin was one of the Freebirds. He was an honorary Freebird. To Michael, it just made sense. Well, who the fuck else would be? Got to be a Freebird. Doot, doot, doot. Man, there you go.
There you go, indeed. They won the tag titles twice there in WCW, the United States tag titles twice as well, and he even beat Lex Luger to win the United States title, which really feels like something that I can't even believe I'm saying out loud. I mean, I watched it, but Michael Hayes was the United States champion.
What the fuck? You don't think I could be the champion of the United States of America?
It's just pretty wild he beat Lex Luger for that belt, just saying. What'd you think of Michael as a color commentator? He sort of flirted with that a little bit in WCW, and he helped with some other things, the music and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. But as a commentator, what'd you think?
Well, Michael first did color in the UWF with Jim Ross, and they were a perfect pair. They were a perfect pair because they were natural, and Michael's a natural antagonist. If Michael were to walk in here right now, he would immediately pick on one or both of us to take the opposite point of view. Probably both of us, and find 3 different points of view in there somehow. He has a natural gift of gab. He is a natural antagonist. And
his phrase is, "You don't get it,
bitch."
But he just was great at that. And it wasn't something he had to think about.
Right.
Plus, Michael also understood the very simple philosophy of being a color commentator, which is to get talent over, not yourself. And how you get over is by getting talent over and being good at it.
Let's talk a little bit about the way he leaves WCW. It's written in the Observer. Michael Hayes quit after being offered a $75,000 per year deal. Hayes also has a seriously injured back, so the entire Johnny B. Bad Hayes scenario on Worldwide will lead to nothing, and their match scheduled for the February 20th pay-per-view is out the window. That happens in February of '94. You were there at the time. How does Michael's name come up the first time with Vince?
Michael called me. I'm sure he called Jim Ross as well, but I know he was calling me.
And he said, "You still owe me for them goddamn T-shirts."
Hey, boy.
But Michael knew that he had fucked up when he was in the WWF before and didn't leave them with a good taste in their mouth. So I would bring Michael's name up, and the answer was every single time, nope, not interested. You add to that it was well known that Michael's injury prevented him from working for WCW, and that, well, he's got a back injury. How much can he do? The right time, and it helped that both Jim and I were plugging for Michael hard, and then the right, it's all timing. Right time, right place. And this was a couple of years, it felt like, or at least every 6 months, that Michael would call and say, "Just checking in." And every single time I would write his name down and bring it up to Vince. "Hey, Michael Hayes is available." But when we needed that color commentator, and I don't even remember what the hell it was Lawler or whoever it was, but we needed a color commentator, I said, "Vince, I really believe you and Michael Hayes would have chemistry."
God damn it, that look. He's all grimy, and that long hair, the bleach blonde and the beard. Ugh, just looks dirty.
So well, we can change the look. That's not an issue. And Vince was like, "Okay, if I can change the look, I'll try it on." But he has to be willing and know that up front that I want to change his look. So I let Michael know. I said, "Hey, he may ask you to cut your hair, man. And he may doesn't like beards. So if you're coming into this, here's an opportunity." And it's a great opportunity because you get to work with Vince on the A show. And that's the best spot you can be in. And I wouldn't put you in any situation that you won't excel at. So know that as well. I'm not setting you up to fail here. But there's an issue with your look.
I'll shave my ass. I'll do whatever I got to do.
And Michael came in. I remember his hair was down to the middle of his back, just bleached blonde, and walking through the hall, full beard and everything. And I was like, oh, God, this is going to be tougher than I thought. Vince met with him. I think we put him in the studio first. They might have done a little back and forth. Vince felt instant chemistry with him. And then I was like,
"Got to do something about your look, pal. How about a haircut?" "Well, all right. How much?" "I'll just take a little off the back."
About 14 inches later, and I had a hairstylist upstairs in makeup.
Waiting. You're a fucking asshole.
Why?
Because you did this to your brother too.
Hang on, no.
You told him up
got him a
front.
job. Got him a job.
No, don't get sassy.
Got him a job, and then was able to facilitate him starting that day, that moment, within an hour.
This whole bowing up Bruce routine is hilarious because when you said, "I had a stylist upstairs," you had a twinkle in your eye. You were so
I was ready.
You loved it. Did you film this?
I don't know.
There's footage of Michael Hayes getting a haircut?
I don't think. I know there's pictures. I don't think there's footage.
Did he put the hair in a bag and take it home like
He might have.
Jim Cornette?
Might have.
Yeah.
But again, it was. I had a stylist there. I'd warned him ahead. I warned him before he ever left Atlanta.
All right, time out. How big of a dick is Bruce at times? All right, he's one of my best friends. You know that. But he is just reveling in the idea that Michael Hayes has to cut his hair. And if you remember, he did the same thing with his brother. I don't know, man. It just seems weird. Like, Bruce wants you to do whatever you don't want to do. He's a heel. I do think it was probably smart for him to change his look to get the WWE gig. It's not like we had a bunch of quote unquote talking heads or stick men with hair down to their ass. So maybe that made sense. But it must have been damn shocking to see Michael Hayes without that mane. You know, it's funny because when people talk about Ric Flair in WCW, they talk about, oh, they were going to make him cut his hair, all of that nonsense. But it actually happened here for another famous mane, Mr. Michael Hayes. Fans just didn't see it coming. But don't worry, as you know, the skullet is back, baby. And we're back with Something to Wrestle with Michael Hayes. Here we go.
He's going to want to cut your hair probably. He's going to want to change your look. So we were ready if he said yes. If he said no, he could have gone home, gone back to Atlanta.
Would you have been disappointed had he walked in without a beard and without hair down to his back?
No, would have been actually. I would have been ecstatic because that would have said to Vince, "Here I am. I've changed my look. What do you think? I'm willing to do whatever you want, Vince." However, there was no hesitation when he said, "Yeah, I cut my hair
So I know this is silly, but how was he dressed?
like Michael."
So he had a fanny pack on?
Oh, I'm sure he did, and I'm sure that he had a fanny pack on. He had a kind of a suit, a Michael suit.
So it was like a loud, crazy color suit?
No, I think it was cream colored.
Okay.
But I really don't. I remember him being in a suit. He was nicely dressed. He was dressed as Michael. But then he did the whole thing, shaved the beard, kept the mustache, and then he was like, "Gotta do something with that name," and came up with different. What do you like? You know, he likes music, he likes things. And Doc Severinsen was the leader of the Tonight Show orchestra band. So
Who?
Doc Severinsen.
I don't even know what the fuck you just said. What is a Doc Severinsen? Do you realize how old you are when you say
Do you realize how uneducated you are by not knowing who Doc Severinsen is?
Listen, if we're going to talk Kevin Eubanks, all right?
Yeah.
I that's what I'm saying. That's the age. Listen, Pop, continue your story.
So Doc Severinsen was leader of the most famous band in the world.
Oh, Jesus.
And then I like Jimi Hendrix. So you had Doc. He liked Doc.
Hang on.
And he liked Jimi Hendrix.
This name was born from the Tonight Show band leader and Jimi Hendrix?
Yes.
Wow.
Merged together. And now Doc Hendrix is born.
And he liked it.
Yeah.
He starts as Doc in April of 95, and Meltzer would write, Michael Hayes debuted on Superstars as Doc Hendrix with a haircut, shave, and being much better dressed. Lawler is moving to do Raw, and Cornette was only temporary co-host because he hated flying in and out. He works as a commentator, of course, for several years, but I think the most famous moment of all for him as Doc Hendrix is King of the Ring, 1996, right, with Stone Cold Steve Austin?
Yes, where Michael was in his nice little tuxedo, and he was the interviewer talking to Stone Cold about winning King of the Ring, and Austin's most famous line of all is, well, you know, Jake Roberts, you can thump your Bible, say your psalm, but Austin 3:16 says, I just whooped your ass. And it was done.
And he's got he played another big role in Stone Cold's success. He wrote in his book, this is Austin, I mean. One day at TV in Fayetteville, North Carolina, I remember Michael Hayes walking up to me and said, hey, kid, come here. You got a second? I said, yeah. He said, I've been trying to think of a good finish for you. You know, that Cobra Clutch deal is okay, but if you do this other finish, it would be better. Wrestler Johnny Ace, who now works with JR in Talent Relations, was doing a version of it in Japan called an Ace Crusher. And Hayes said, it's different from Ace's finish because you put the guy's chin on your shoulder, jump up, and then you land on your ass. And he got some of the local wrestlers together in the ring and said, hey, guys, do you mind helping us with this? And they started practicing the stunner that day. He did it about 6 times, and Michael Hayes said, pretty cool, huh? And Austin said, yeah, I like it, and there you go. JR named it the Stone Cold Stunner, and we're off to the races. I don't think that gets talked about enough.
It doesn't, and the idea behind it was one of Michael's. Well, he should be able to hit some. He's a rattlesnake. He should be able to hit some just out of the blue. And like a snake bite. And hence the Stone Cold Stunner, the Stone Cold Stunner was born.
All right, timeout. You know, I don't think Michael Hayes gets enough credit. I sort of opened it up this show and talked about how his fingerprints are all over so many great iconic moments We all know that Hayes was standing there holding the microphone when the Austin 316 happened, but him introducing Steve to the stunner. How many other things like that are out there that we don't know about? Because Michael doesn't do interviews, and he doesn't do shoot interviews, and he hadn't written a book, and he doesn't really pat himself on the back unless he's talking about the Freebirds. But behind the scenes, he just lets the guys take 100% of the credit, and that's the way it should be. Not arguing that. But it is sort of interesting to think about all the contributions that we don't know about that some of these producers, like Michael, have had over the years. But can you imagine Steve with any other finish? I mean, what if, and I'm not saying it would have been, but what if his finish was a Boston Crab? He's going to run down Boston Crab everybody? The stunner was invaluable. And a lot of that is from Michael Hayes. It's remarkable. And it shows you how much value a guy like Michael Hayes has to the business, even after his in-ring days are up. Let's get back to it. Something to Wrestle with Michael Hayes.
What was Michael doing besides just commentary with Vince at the time? Because that's really good insight here in the late 90s.
Doing commentary. He was doing commentary. Then he did the live event centers, and he had his hands in a lot of different things.
Did he produce, though?
No, he wasn't producing wrestling matches by any stretch of the imagination. No one had the confidence in him at that point, but he was really, really good. The other thing was Michael was that guy that you would have a production meeting and you would lay everything out, and I dreaded it when I would say, questions, comments, anybody? And if Michael was sitting in the back left-hand corner of the room, I would look to the front right. Like, okay, nobody's got any questions. And,
I got a question. Hey, I got...
Constantly. He still does to this day. The thing about it is that his questions were very logical, very well thought out, and it made you sometimes feel real stupid because you missed it. But Michael would pick up on little nuances that would change things and make them mean a lot more. And that, to me, is the genius of Michael Hayes, being able to take the larger picture and making these fine details mean that much more. And that's what he did. So that eventually got noticed.
Well, it did get noticed. And, I mean, we know what his legacy has gone on to be. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little more, but I do want to talk about all of a sudden in 1999, he pops up wrestling again in Memphis for Power Pro Wrestling. Meltzer would write, the Michael Hayes of 1984 would have been a superstar in the industry today. The Michael Hayes of 1999 is like a parody of a wrestler. It's this middle-aged, beer-bellied second baseman still wearing a tank top on a softball team who probably was a stud in his youth, if you get the picture. It was made worse when they showed a Hayes interview today and the Bad Street video from 84, and it's like seeing the father of a rocker trying to play a rocker. So Meltzer shitting on him, but why in the world did he try his hand again in wrestling in 99?
I think he just wanted to get in the ring and take some bumps and have some fun. That's really all it boils down to.
Well, he did. He even became the Power Pro Wrestling Heavyweight Champion in March of 99 and dropped it in May to J.R. Smooth, who's going to go on to become Rikishi. And later that month, he started managing the Hardys on TV. And that's probably the first time that a lot of fans who are listening to our show really were introduced to Michael Hayes. How did that pairing come to be?
We had the Hardy Boys, and go back to the camps that we used to have all the time, the Funkin' Dojos, and the Hardy Boys had been enhancement talent for us for so long, you kind of started to take them for granted. But they had been through that. They'd done that for several years. And now you look at new talent. Where are you going to find them? And we're looking at some of these younger guys. And Cornette is the one who said, God damn, what about the Hardys? We should bring them in. And we did. And we kept them off TV for a while, long enough so people would forget about all the times they'd had their ass whooped on TV. And we brought the Hardys in as a team, but neither one of them could talk. Jeff was terrified, and Matt thought he could talk, but really couldn't. They needed a mouthpiece. So the idea was Michael Hayes. And Michael not only Michael liked the Hardy Boys, felt that they had a lot of upside. So Michael was going to be that mentor to be able to go out, cut the promos for the Hardy Boys, but also be at ringside to get them through their matches, to be right there to not only tell them what to do, but sometimes show them exactly what to do. And be in the heat of the moment and be able to call it for them. So Michael was there to get the Hardy Boys out of being that enhancement tag team and make them, if they were ever going to be big-time players, this was their chance to get out of that groove.
It's been said over the years, of course, that Michael Hayes was not only a big fan of the Hardy Boys, but Edge and Christian as well. And, of course, that group of guys had some absolutely legendary matches, and you've sort of talked about that in fun tones before, those tables, ladders, and chairs matches. What was the relationship like with those tag teams, and why was Michael so in love with them?
Because I think Michael saw him and Terry in both of those tag teams, being young, having their entire careers ahead of them, and being able to travel the world and learn and be able to experience all of these things. And I think I've told the story about the Hardy Boys sitting in the diner with Michael and Michael having the idea of what was next for the Hardys.
I got an idea. How about we get these dusters, all of us, in at full length all the way to the ground. We take forks and knives and spoons, and we put them on the jackets. Ain't nobody else gonna have that. Ain't nobody else gonna have that.
That was his great idea for the Hardys, which actually would have been pretty cool because nobody else would have had it.
Motherfucker, if somebody shows up on Raw or SmackDown with utensils on it, I'm blaming you and Hayes. All right, so let's keep it going. Let's talk about Fully Loaded, 1999, I believe. July 25th in Buffalo, New York. We've got Farouk and Bradshaw. They're the Acolytes. And they're going to win the tag titles, beating Matt and Jeff and Michael Hayes. It's 2-on-3 here. And the match gets started, and JBL clotheslines the shit out of Michael Hayes. And the finish is a double powerbomb on Michael Hayes. So Michael Hayes actually gets pinned and costs the Hardys their tag titles. What do you remember about this match?
Dude. It was time for Michael. He had done all he could do with the Hardys, and it was actually kind of the original intent. I think that we had served that master, and Michael also being in the production meetings was, you saw what he did for the Hardys. He had good ideas for other people. So Vince started to listen to him more and gave him more opportunities to be a part. Not if he can do that for the Hardys and these guys, what can he do for other talent? And so Michael was brought into that creative process and used to help, before we get to TV.
The August 9th Raw, we would see Gangrel beat Christian with the implant DDT after blowing mist in his eyes, and then the Hardy Boys would come out during the match and jump Christian. Edge makes the save, but Gangrel DDTs him, and then Michael Hayes runs in to pull the Hardy Boys off, but they turn on him, and you could have heard a pin drop when they turned on Hayes. And they each gave Hayes a twist of fate, and that's it. No more Hayes, no more Hardy Boys. Was Michael disappointed he wasn't going to be on TV anymore?
I think Michael felt, well, I should have a comeback. What the fuck? How about if I went out and brought the Road Warriors in? Or, something. I think Michael really felt that he should have had a comeback of some sort in there. But he was moving on. He was moving on to do what I think is, I'm not taking anything away from his in-ring career because he had a great one.
Sure.
Phenomenal one. But I think that his forte was behind the scenes.
Well, he goes back to backstage work and doing color commentary again, and he starts doing that on September 23rd, 1999 on SmackDown. And he does some color commentary work on Sunday Night Heat alongside Michael Cole and Kevin Kelly from 2000 to 2001. We used on a lot of international broadcasts. We just covered our WrestleMania 17 episode. He got a huge pop in the Gimmick Battle Royal. How excited was he to dust off that old robe and strut ass down there in Texas again?
I think it was vindication for Michael to come out, do it in Texas, Houston, where
it's WrestleMania.
It's WrestleMania. and Freebirds coming out, doot, doot, doot. But the place exploded for him.
Sure they
They
did.
were happy to see him, and he was happy to be out there. So it was a lot of fun for a Freebird. First time to be in a WrestleMania.
What does he do sort of backstage at that point? 01, 02, 03?
Michael was an agent. But he was also a part of the writing team. So he was part of creative and creating a lot of that stuff.
Tell me what, not now, but what did it look like back in 02, 03? The writing process, the teams, if you will.
Well, they would get together and they would come up with TV, and then they would pitch Vince. And
I want to get real granular here for a minute. Like, they get together in Stamford. There's a room in the headquarters.
Yeah, and actually, I wasn't a part of it at that time. I was still in talent relations. So
But you knew how it happened.
It just was. It was those guys getting together, and they had offices, and they had a writing room, I think, at the studio. So those guys would all get together. Then they would pitch Vince, and they would get together and work with Vince and talk about ideas for TV, put it all on paper, and then go execute.
These days, people probably can do, group social media chats or group text messages. Back then, was it all by email, or if somebody had an idea, just strike them in the middle of the night, they wrote it down and then presented it at the round table the next week?
We had phones.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah. No, a lot of it was on the phone. A lot of it was just writing it down. Yes, we had email, but
that wasn't the go-to.
I still don't
so.
use email.
No, I'm aware.
As effectively as I guess I should. But and for some of us old timers, that's a hiccup. I mean, I still write with pencil, and because
And some of your old notes are fading now.
they are.
Because the lead is
Yes.
disappearing. Yeah.
Yes, they are.
So let's talk about something that you knew we were going to bring up. The plane ride from hell, May 5th, 2002. I wasn't there. I know you're going to say that. But Sean Waltman says, Michael Hayes was getting real bad, and he's got a lot of heat. Nobody likes him. He was drunk, rowdy as fuck, like being a dick, loud and obnoxious. Hayes almost pissed on Linda McMahon. He was all fucked up, trying to whip his dick out. He didn't know it was Linda. He thinks he's at a fucking bathroom. And he starts saying, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. He just keeps saying, wait a minute, over and over. And the story goes that Bradshaw fucking clocked him and knocked him out. So Hayes is out cold, and he's got that fucking long hair and a ponytail and that mullet. You're still rocking the mullet. And I said, somebody get me a pair of scissors. And I remember Lawler over there just giggling, and everybody's like, no, 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 you're not going to do it. I grabbed those scissors like I was pulling a pair of tape brass knucks out of my tights, really over-exaggerating. And the whole plane just erupted. And Hayes would not realize it was gone until he went through customs. Now, this is all Sean Waltman's account of what happened. What do you remember about the plane ride from hell and the shenanigans Michael Hayes allegedly was involved in?
Well, okay, first of all, those are two different plane rides that kind of merged into one, because the alleged urination took place in another plane ride that I was actually a part of. The plane ride from hell is where Michael got his ponytail cut off. And from what I hear, is kind of that's how it happened. Michael passed out up in the front of the plane, and they kind of had enough, and his ponytail was gone. And when he discovered, hi, who's the pussy that ain't got the balls to face me? And like Jerry Briscoe finally threw his bags up because Michael was challenging everybody on the plane, and Briscoe goes, Michael, you want to fight? We ain't fight. Fuck it. Let's go right now. I don't care. I didn't cut your hair, but shut the fuck up. We can go right now. And then when it was Jerry Briscoe that shut up, that said something, well, fuck. I won't fight you, Jerry.
So the peeing on Vince, Linda McMahon, pretty famous story. He even alluded to it in his Hall of Fame speech. It led to a saying that became pretty popular with him and some WWE brass. That's on you.
Yeah. Well, Michael had to go to the bathroom. He walked up. He was close to the bathroom, and he started to. I guess he thought he was in the bathroom. I saw it from behind. Hunter saw it from the front. But we both saw it, thankfully, before it was too late, and tackled Michael into the actual bathroom. It was one of those doors that kind of went in, and both Hunter and I are kind of looking at ourselves going, God, he's not pissing on us, is he?
Because, Freebird was free.
Okay, time out. What does it say about how great Michael Hayes is at what he does and how much Vince appreciates him when you consider the stories about him almost pissing on Linda, the airplane ride from hell, Stephanie's wedding, just on and on and on? The guy is a wrestling genius. What other explanation would there be to put up with such crazy behavior? Even one of those stories would get you cut, right? You would think. I mean, think about all the silly stuff that's happened in WWE in the last 30 years that we heard resulted in a firing or a dismissal. Nobody almost pissed on Linda. It just goes to show you that Michael Hayes is a lovable dude. Now, we know that because we know him in real life, but we can't convey that enough. But not only is he a likable dude and easy to love, but my God, he must be a wrestling genius for Vince McMahon to do this. We all know how quirky Vince is. And for him to sort of turn a blind eye, if you will, or just keep him under his employ, God bless you, Michael Hayes. We love you, but apparently not as much as Vince does. Let's get back to it. Something to Wrestle with Michael Hayes.
Well, they were free at the wedding, the famous Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Stephanie McMahon wedding. A pretty famous story here. Maybe he was overserved a little bit. Wade Keller would write, Michael Hayes made a spectacle of himself at the wedding of Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. An attendee paraphrased Hayes' drunken wedding reception antics. First, Hayes got on stage and performed Jailhouse Rock with the wedding band, and his performance drew a few uncomfortable chuckles and was considered out of place by many of those in attendance.
Wrong. That was fucking on fire and was one of the highlights of the wedding. The Jailhouse Rock performance was off the chart great.
Where Michaels lost everyone was when he took the stage again later that night and wanted to perform another song. This time the band refused, which led Hayes to berate them. Hayes decided to sing without the band supporting him, and based on one reception attendee's account, Hayes said something along these lines. This song goes out to Stephanie and Hunter. Fuck. I mean Stephanie and Paul, the $1 billion princess and the $1 million talent. He starts singing a song, encourages everyone to join in, and specifically Kurt Angle speaks up and says that you're making a fool out of yourself. And eventually Linda takes the stage, snatches the mic away from Hayes, and says, thank you, Michael, in the most sarcastic manner. It was described to the Torch as low class and low brow, everything Vince McMahon doesn't want to be. Allegedly, Triple H was pissed off by Hayes' antics, as were a number of guests. Nobody wanted to throw the first punch and mess up the wedding, but he had one coming, said one observer. You were there. What did you think of the encore performance by Mr. Hayes?
Highly entertaining. He might have had a little too much to drink, but he, like I said, the first performance, he tore the house down. And I don't think anybody was disappointed by that one. That one was absolutely great. Then when he went on to sing a song that no one knew what he was trying to sing, and there might have been a F word in there, but that was absolutely classic. And when Kurt went up to say, hey, Michael, why don't you, come on, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, shoot on me? And that's when Linda intervened and just took the microphone and thanked him very much. And Michael went, I think I'm going to go to bed now. Dude, I'm sleepy and tired. I think I need to go to bed. I got an ideal.
How much heat was on Michael after that?
I don't think there was any heat. It was it was a fun, really. It was one of those fun moments you had something to talk about.
Go ahead and tell the story that Brian Gerwitz told at one of our New York shows a few years ago, where Stephanie's pregnant and everybody's sort of talking about, all the crazy antics that Michael Hayes has had over the years. And Brian raised the question, what would Michael Hayes have to do in order to get fired? And he went through some of these crazy antics where he almost peed on Linda. He maybe showed out a little bit, had a little too much to drink, overindulged at the wedding. And he sort of, Brian made up a song, maybe a Beyonce song. I think Beyonce's was All the Single Ladies, and Michael Hayes had a different one.
Little stupid baby, something like that.
Oh, you little stupid baby. Yeah, it was.
The idea being, I'm going to jog your memory here a little bit. Brian said he would do an impression of Michael Hayes, and he would say, "That baby don't know shit. Stupid fucking baby. Can't walk and talk. Who that baby ever beat?"
Yeah, that little baby ain't done shit.
And then he broke into
All stupid babies. You're a stupid baby. Yeah, we had fun with that.
Talk about Brian and Michael's relationship.
Brian Gewirtz was the lead writer of Raw, extremely talented. Brian listens to our show, so shout out to Brian.
Yeah, you just butchered
Fuck
his
him.
story, by the way.
I know I did.
I teed it up as good as I could.
Yeah, but you know what? It's
Just come to a show sometime. Well, I guess we're out of shows.
yeah,
so.
well, you know,
Oh,
it
well.
happens. But no, they had Brian was Raw and Michael was SmackDown. Doot Doot Doot. So it was kind of a love-hate relationship, and it was one of those that Michael being from the South, Brian being from New York City, it was a bit of a culture clash as well, and they had a lot of fun together. But there was a ton of mutual respect for one another. But it was fun to listen to the interaction. Is Brian learned an awful lot about the South, and Michael learned an awful lot about the North.
Do you remember his about his hair? Brian had a theory about whether Michael's hair was
Michael's hair was up in a ponytail, then it was safe. You could go party with Michael, but if the bun was undone, you better run. 'Cause that meant Beowulf was out. So as soon as Michael took the hair down out of the ponytail and the bun was undone, you better run.
On the December 5th, 2005 episode of Raw, Michael Hayes becomes involved in a verbal confrontation with Edge, where Hayes attacks Edge's lack of main event experience and the details of his love life, and then Hayes is later attacked by Edge. In October of 2006, he becomes the head creative writer for SmackDown after Alex Greenfield left the company. You were there at the time. It's a long way from having to get a haircut to get a job to now head of creative for SmackDown, huh?
Yeah, but Michael, again, a lot of that shit's, corporate titles and things like that don't always mean that much, because Michael he was in charge of that, and he did do that, but he was such an integral part in not just SmackDown, but also Raw, in everything that we did creatively. I hate to say this out loud because people will judge it, and I'll have to listen to it from Michael. But Michael really is a savant and a genius in the wrestling business in a lot of ways. I mean, he has a very unique outlook on the business and how it's presented, and has been able to take that outlook and create a lot of interesting things. So I think that, especially when it comes to unique and creative finishes, that he I don't think there's anybody better.
What's he do these days?
I don't know. I don't know. I think Michael works with the live events, but he also is a producer at TV too. So he helps young talent. He is able to take something and make it make sense.
Allegedly, there are top guys who are sort of assigned a guy, like a John Cena. Allegedly had Arn Anderson as his guy. Does Michael have guys?
He probably does. I don't know who the hell they'd be nowadays, but Michael was one of those that, for example, Pat Patterson always loved to work with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and Michael was somebody he loved to work with Stone Cold, and obviously he loved to work with the Hardys and people like that. But Michael was instrumental in a lot of guys getting over and taking them to the next level with just that little tweak on their character to make them from just being a star to a superstar.
One of Michael's last big promos on TV was a segment with MVP back in 2007, December of 2007 on SmackDown. MVP had a little talking segment called the VIP Lounge. What do you remember about that? I know Michael had to enjoy one last piece of business. on
Yeah, I
TV.
think Michael would love any time to have camera time and be able to be out in front of the audience and have fun and get creative and be put in that legendary role. And I know that when he went into the Hall of Fame, being able to perform Bad Street at a WWE Hall of Fame was a huge thrill. I think that he was looking for an oxygen tank about 30 seconds into it. That's a whole another story. But I know that was something that was really special to him and a thrill for him to actually do all these years later and have people. When we had Michael at our live show in Atlanta, to me, the best part is, it's a kick when we do, and I'll sing Spend My Days, and everybody sings it with me. That's the biggest kick in the world. But when Michael sang Bad Street in Atlanta, brother, everybody came.
Yeah, I had goosebumps. It was awesome.
And that to me is just something that you can't replicate, and that feeling is unlike anything in the world.
What do you think Michael Hayes' legacy in the business will be?
Freebird. I think to the general public it'll be Freebird. And to those of us that know him, for me, my viewpoint is I think that Michael will go down as one of the greatest minds in the business creatively. And when he first started to do that, there were old-timers like Roddy Piper, Hulk Hogan, that when they had come back, they'd been away for a while. And they came back, and all of a sudden, Michael Hayes is the one that is talking to them about creative. They're going, what the fuck is this guy doing here, man? It's like, he was a Freebird down south, and what'd he ever do? But once they got past that and listened to him and worked with him, it was like, give me Michael. I want to work with him. And so for me, I think Michael's legacy will be the continuation of the business and being able to put that creative spin and make as much on the show mean something as possible.
There's been a fair amount of negativity online about Michael Hayes over the years. People who didn't really know him, and people who believe what they read one way or another. And as me and you have discovered, sometimes what you read on the inside or on the internet is one-sided or slanted, and it doesn't tell the whole story. You were there for a lot of the ups and downs behind the scenes of Michael Hayes. How would you describe him as a person?
I would describe Michael Hayes as probably one of the sweetest human beings I've ever met. He really doesn't have a malicious bone in his body. And when you hear him and look at him and you actually take the time to get to know him, you realize I want him to be my friend and I want to learn from him.
Yep.
And I don't know anybody that has taken that time to get to know him and not just listen to the rumor and the innuendo and the bullshit out there, that you'll see he is one of the most genuine, brutally honest, but one of the most genuine people you will ever encounter in your lifetime. And I'm happy. I told a story just last night to somebody about Michael in the first time that my wife met Michael Hayes, and she was terrified of him.
Mine too.
Yeah, and it was like, oh my God, what the hell is this? And then she got to know Michael.
Yep.
And it was, he's got a special place in our heart and our home, and he's one of my, one of those guys in the business that I look at and go, okay, he's my buddy.
He definitely has a facade, though.
Yeah.
He puts up the big wall and the big hard shell. But then once you get to know him, it's a totally different guy, and that was my experience too. Years ago, when she and I first went to his house for the first time, she had hung out with him, in social settings for a lot, but actually going to his house and seeing him interact with his dogs and getting to know the real him at home, it's a different guy.
Yeah, Jerry Briscoe and I, every time we were in Atlanta, would stay at Michael's house. That was always an experience. But JoJo Hayes, JoJo was his dog.
Everybody who saw the Hall of Fame knows about JoJo.
Yes, and JoJo was awesome, man. But again, he's just regular. He's flesh and blood, and he fucks up, makes mistakes. We all do. But as much as he would like for you to think sometimes that he's mean and nasty and snarling. He's just a teddy bear and one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet.
Let's do some rapid fire questions. Let's start with a big one here. We asked for your questions on Twitter, and Michael Hayes has a question. I'll let you read it.
I got a question. How are you really going to have this show without me?
Michael? No guests needed. We don't do guests here. Do.
Have you guys talked about the fact that we're going to be doing his show?
Yes, and he's very upset that we're actually doing it professionally in a studio today in New York City. He wanted to come by. He goes, well, fuck. I just want to come by and say doot, doot, doot.
Bacabella wants to know, what was the most ridiculous thing he ever asked Jeff Hardy to jump off of?
Hey, Jeff, can we get a trained shark and you could ride it up onto the beach and then do like a quadruple backward flip?
I don't know, man. He's asked Jeff to jump off it. Damn near anything wasn't nailed down.
Josh Whalen wants to know, can you guys put together a glossary of Hayesisms? What's the origin of Doot 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 and Mabes? I don't even know what you're talking about on that one. Now, he's saying Nabes, which is a form of knuckles.
It's like hello.
Babes.
Describe how you do it, though.
Well, it's kind of like a fist bump, but it's a nabes bump.
Not with the top knuckle, but with the middle
with the knuckles. Yeah. And it's just nabes. And Doot 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 is, which we've told this so many times when I first started talking about Michael Hayes and Doot Doot Doot. And Hunter has a famous interview where he talks about when he got his hair cut and says, well, I don't want to be like Michael Hayes walking around with my hair down to my ass, Doot Doot Doot. That's just simply not something Michael has ever said. However, if Michael were to make a sound when he walked, it would be doot, doot, doot. And I credit Brian Wirtz for that one as well. So it's when we first started doing that, Michael called me and says, I see Michael Hayes, and I answer the phone. Hey, he goes, hey, I just want you to know something. I said, yeah. He goes, I ain't never said doot, doot, doot in my life. I said, I know, Michael, but you know that if you were to make a sound, that's what it would be. It would be doot, doot, doot. He goes, all right, then. End of conversation. I'm like, yeah, Michael's never said it. Now he does all the time, by the way.
Yes, all the time.
Yeah. Now he doot, doot, doots.
And he has his own custom fanny pack now. Tell everybody about that.
He's got the greatest fanny pack in the world, man. It's got Freebird. It's got the fabulous Freebirds Hall of Fame and 2 different patches on it. And it's got a super wide band that goes around his super wideness. And it's got Freebird Hall of Fame. Very nice. It is. I need to get one of those. I got to find out where they had that made.
Bacabella wants to know, better pitchman in wrestling, Hendricks or Don West?
I'll go with Michael, just because Don West isn't here.
I love you for that. The Bad Street USA album, did you ever get it?
No.
What about Michael's album, Off the Streets?
Fuck no.
Not just no, but fuck no.
Road Habib wants to know, what are 3 things that Hayes did that really pissed Vince off?
God, I think, early on, obviously not showing up for shots and kind of fucking up the record deal. But I think Vince is highly entertained by him.
We got lots of questions about the Freebirds appearing at the beginning of the Highlander movie. Do you know anything about that?
It was something that was done in the AWA. So that was a big deal because Vern was going to overtake Vince. I'll have guys in major motion pictures. But no, I really don't. I just find it funny that that's the only part of the Highlander movie I've ever seen.
Tons of questions about what's in Michael Hayes' fanny pack.
Doot. You'll never know.
Okay, timeout. This is fun. If you were to guess what's in Michael Hayes' fanny pack today, 2021, not during the Freebird days, I would probably have a different guess back then. I mean now, 2021, cell phone, wallet, keys. What else is in there though? gum, mints, a condom from 1997. What do you think's in there? I'm serious. What do you think's in there? A little thing of mouthwash, a little thing of lotion. What's in there? Michael won't tell me, so I'm asking you. What do you think's in Michael Hayes' fanny pack? There's got to be some unintentionally hilarious shit. Some lip balm. I don't know. There's got to be something fun in that fanny pack. What do you think's in there? Tweet us at Prichard Show and tell us what you think is in Michael Hayes' fanny pack in 2021. Let's get back to it.
Sometimes it used to rattle.
I kept my mints in there, my Altoids. I
don't know why that's funny, but it is. Yeah. He does keep the world's most worn out wallet in there, though. You remember the old Seinfeld episode where Costanza had way too much?
And Michael's back problem is from being in the fanny pack and weighing him down frontwards versus sitting on it and fucking up his back the other way.
Lots of questions about whether or not Michael has a low-key big hog. Do you want to comment?
I don't even know what that is.
Do you ever have any interesting stories about Michael in airports, one way or another?
No, but I will say this: when my brother Tom got married, we got snowed out and rented a car, and Michael got us from wherever the hell we were in the Carolinas to Knoxville, Tennessee in record time. Michael's one of the best wheelmen you'd ever want to know.
I disagree.
Oh, he's great.
He about killed me at a Ruby Tuesdays once.
But you're still here, right?
I'm still here.
Okay, that makes him a great wheelman.
That's what's funny is he turned to me and said, "But did you die?"
You didn't die, boy. I got you here.
You know,
saying,
you don't have a good Michael Hayes airport story? Come on.
No.
We usually tell it on live shows, but fuck, we're done with them.
Oh, no. I'm not going to tell that one. No.
All right, well, come join us.
Can we that's a live one.
We'll tell it on Monday night with
That's
JR?
a live one.
Will you tell it on Monday night
Maybe.
with JR?
Yeah, sure, why not?
All right. Well, listen, I had fun talking about Michael P.S. Hayes.
Whoa. Not so fast, my friend. I promise you to stick around till the end of the show because we had a bit of a surprise. There's usually a no guests needed rule here on Something to Wrestle. Well, how about this for something different? We don't normally do this, but we're throwing the rule book out the window, Freebird style. But we're making an exception today for a very special reason and a very special person. Today is, I guess, bittersweet. Today would have been Terry Bam Bam Gordy's 60th birthday. And in order to pay tribute to him, we've got probably the best friend he ever had, Mr. Michael P.S. Hayes. Michael, how are you, man?
I'm awesome, Conrad. Thank you for having me. And let me tell you that that road goes both ways. Man, you know, when you sit around and you thought all your life that you wouldn't make it to 30, and now I just turned 62, and man, I miss Buddy and I miss Terry, and especially the things that go on now or that are at least coming back with your Comic-Cons and your WrestleCons and, you know, the autograph appearances that we all could have done and still, you know, bullshit it and talked about our stories and stuff. And, you know, that's not going to happen. So, but it's okay because my memories keep me very happy about both of them. But this week it's about Terry. And, you know, Conrad, everybody's heard the stories, you know, about how Terry and I got together. I think it was in Port Gibson, Mississippi, and the promoter told me if I didn't like it, I could leave. So, of course, I left. And I had that long wait in the car till Terry come out and said, "Well, where are we going, Michael?" I told him, if I didn't want you, they didn't want me. But I've been thinking a lot about that this week. And I thought, what if Terry didn't come down to the car and say that? And what if Terry didn't leave?
Wow.
And if you go there, man, you lose a lot of historical things that happened with the fabulous Freebirds and those people we were fortunate to work against. I mean, if that happened, now Terry would have made it in his own right because of his wrestling ability, and I probably would have sooner or later made it because of my gift of gab, but not at that early of an age, teaming together to combine those powers.
You know, what's crazy, Michael, is he passed away when he was just 40 years old. So here we are, celebrating his 60th birthday. I don't think a lot of people know how young you guys were when you started running. I mean, I think he started wrestling when he's like 14, 15 years old, something like that.
I think his first match was for Johnny Powers opposition wrestling in the Carolinas, and it was against Ernie Ladd on TV at the age of 13.
Oh my gosh.
He just obviously, Jimmy Garvin said it a million times. It's the truth. He was God's gift to wrestling. He was bestowed that, and to that, I've always felt, especially the later I get in my life, that God really does like wrestling. I mean, he really does, whether he gets a kick out of it or what, because there's no way I come up with some of these ideas I come up with without his help. And I know other people feel like that too, like Shawn Michaels. But, going back to if Terry had not made that decision, well, then you probably don't get the Freebirds, at least at that time. And if they hadn't gone at that time and then went to Goulis for a little bit of time, then to Jarrett to kick off doing the music, then to Bill Watts, then you miss out on the whole Junkyard Dog saga. And then potentially, the Freebirds breaking that barrier with the music on Georgia Championship Wrestling and what all that led to, and, just really plugged our notoriety because it was the only national show at the time. And then you got to think, well, shit, maybe you wouldn't have seen the Freebird Von Erich feud.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then, you go on down the line, and then the Freebirds and the Road Warriors. And then how about Dr. Death and Terry Gordy and all the stuff they did in Japan? I mean, you take Terry out of the equation, we lose a lot of historical significance in our business.
Right.
So, that's really all I wanted to do was just, put it out there, say how much I loved him. I hope people take the time to go back and watch his matches. He was such a teddy bear, and unlike the rough bastard he was in the ring. And did he have his faults? Of course he had his faults. We all have faults.
Yeah.
Anybody out there that doesn't have a fault, come kiss my big fat ass because you're lying. Okay.
Hey,
I was just with Nate Tuesday morning, and I still get a kick out of him. I mean, he's just I love him to death, always have. But I mean, he's just always going to be Rick,
Right.
Like I'm just always going to be Michael, and you're just always going to be Conrad, and some of us are just blessed with that. But 60 years that would have been really cool. Wasn't meant to be. It's in a better place, and I'm okay with that. But just sometimes I get a little melancholy thinking about it. And I appreciate you and Bruce and giving me the time to say that. And like I said, I hope everybody will check out something about Terry Gordy. Check out Freebird Road. I'm proud of that song, which is dedicated to him, that Johnny Van Zant and Donnie Van Zant allowed me to rewrite. So with that said,
Michael, recommend some matches. A lot of people hear what a stud Terry was over in Japan, and a lot of people remember his tag run with Dr. Death, even in WCW. But are there some old, Freebird stuff from World Class or something like that really stand out to you that you'd recommend?
Well, yes. Obviously, I would say, the Texas Stadium 6-man tag when Fritz came out of retirement. There was a tag with the boys from Fort Worth. I believe it was July 4th, 83 or maybe 84. It was a Bad Street match. And I would venture to say probably the first, not the first ever, because, there's never a first ever. There's things that are equivalent to or take from something. But what I'm talking about, that Bad Street match is one of the first hardcore matches, I think. And it just never stopped. There's also matches when Terry went back to Texas and had his war with Killer Khan. Those were really good matches. There was one with Flair in Sportatorium. I'm not as privy or as educated, I should say, to the ones that him and Doc had in Japan. I did see a lot. I'll tell you what, I saw a match Terry showed me one time. That was him versus Doc. That was unbelievable. And it was obviously from Japan, all Japan wrestling. So that, those are the ones I would throw out there right now.
You and I were lucky enough to watch an old highlight clip, and it's made the rounds. Somebody in the crowd was sort of jaw-jacking with Terry, and he had enough of that. And you described the shove that Terry had on that fan in a very interesting way. Do you remember the way you described that shove?
Well, I remember watching it back in slow motion, and it looked like he just broke the guy's back, because it's like his waist stayed where it was and his mouth and the cigarette in it, but his back just went way back. I mean, it was almost like a cartoon, and I don't know if that's the way I described it. That's the way I remember it. I do also remember that guy tried to get money out of us, or the company at the time for it. But pretty much back then, when you bought your ticket, there was a disclaimer on the back that we could shoot anything we wanted to of you. And how stupid is he to get up in Terry's face?
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
God dang it, please. Well, that's like a dog chasing parked cars.
Well, of course it's
not a winnable situation.
No, it is not a winnable situation. We're going to watch some Terry Gordy matches and celebrate his memory this weekend. Thank you for making those recommendations. Real quick, let's touch on Mr. Gordy's family. He was married for a long, long time to a beautiful lady named Connie, and I think he's got some kids who have started to dabble in the business a little bit here and there. What can you share with us about the Gordy family these days?
Well, I know that Amber, his youngest daughter, just had her second child recently. Miranda, his oldest daughter, is really making quite a name for herself on the independent circuit. She calls herself the Bad Street Beauty, and she's progressing. And hopefully one day we'll get her down at NXT once she gets a little bit more reps and, gets even better on the mic. Ray Gordy, who was Jesse with Festus and Jesse sometime in the early 2000s, he had a good career. He's a very good worker, but he has migrated into the law enforcement field.
Oh, cool.
And has been a sheriff in Cobb County for some years, and I believe he's switching over to Kennesaw, which is like right north of Cobb County. But yeah, Miranda's the only one active right now, and man, she looks great, and she's just a star waiting to hatch.
Well, we'll all keep an eye out for her. All right, man. I'll edit that in. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Enough said. I hope everybody has an awesome weekend. This is my last weekend of vacation. I got to see my mother, who I hadn't seen since the pandemic. It was almost a year and a half.
Oh my gosh.
So I've been having a friggin' awesome time. And, I just turned the corner as far as WrestleMania. I'm proud as hell of that. That was just awesome. And I was so happy for the kids to be able to work in front of the crowd again. Because, I've gone on record saying that, why this group is more athletic, that they're not as good with promos, and maybe they're not as tough. And then I got to thinking about it a couple of weeks ago. Man, when you go out there and wrestle like they have, like there's still a crowd there, and do all they put themselves through, I'm sorry, that's pretty fucking tough.
Yeah.
So I decided to eat my words on that. But enough about that. I appreciate you guys a lot. You should appreciate me, because you use me all the time in all your stories. Only half of them are fucking true, by the way. But and I've never received a residual check. Isn't that ironic?
Isn't that weird? Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.